Hi, everyone. I'm Griff, and we're back with another eBay executive. This time, as you can see on the screen, it's Jordan Sweetnam. He's our Vice President of Operations and Americas. Do I get that title right, Jordan?
Yeah,
It's
pretty
good enough?
much.
Okay.
America's, yeah, it's good.
Jordan, we're very happy you could be here. We're going to keep in touch with our sellers over the next few weeks during this highly unusual situation with the pandemic. We're not having any live events, so these are our way of connecting either through our videos on Zoom and our podcast, and lots more to come. But thanks for taking time out of your day to talk to us. We're working from home. Jordan has a nice back screen. I should have one, but I don't, but that's fine. And listening in is our good friend Liz Austin, so you might see her name on the screen as well. So Jordan, let's start right off. Again, really good to have you here, but tell us, what's on your mind?
I mean, there is a lot going on right now. It's everything from what's going on with the economy. Uh, I think it'd be hard for you to talk to anybody right now and have them start with an answer that doesn't begin with family and friends. And then what's going on with the business and our sellers. So much has changed in our day-to-day routines. I start my day and go through the illusion of going to work. And then, the other day I walked out to my car just to pretend I was going somewhere to like break the monotony, and then walked back inside and sat down in front of my laptop. And there's just a lot of everybody adjusting. For eBay employees, it's how do you work from home? And it's not working from home in the traditional sense. It's how do you work from home when there's kids running around in the background, there's dogs snoring in the corner of the room, you walk out and kids are trying to figure out homework, and you've got two spouses in cramped spaces. And for sellers, it's a lot of just listening on the boards and in phone calls and conversations, and just the disruption and change. It isn't just a negative thing, because some businesses are doing really well. Others have seen sales evaporate, and some in the middle are just, there's a lot of transition that has to happen in terms of operations and how to change fulfillment and the buyer demands, the nuances of shipping. And so it's fascinating with how fast everything is moving. And so a lot we can talk about, Griff, today in terms of what's on my mind.
Yeah. I know some of the things that are on your mind are some of the things that we've had to come up with rather quickly here at eBay to help sellers through this period of time. I want to talk a little bit about your perspective on some of these things. So, for example, there was a lot of questions that started coming up early on when it looked like this was going to be a disruption nationwide, when as it pertains to something like seller protections. I'm trying to ship my items out. I'm under a shelter in place. I can't, get to the post office all the time. I don't know what the carrier situation is going to be. How do we approach that? And what were your thoughts about what we did?
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, look, I think I've shared in prior podcasts and through various online forums some of my thoughts around how we need to evolve our overall seller standards or retail standards on eBay. In some cases, I think sellers are required to ship items faster than buyers even really value. But man, like that is a long-term problem we need to figure out. And all of a sudden, we have this disruption in our day-to-day lives. And so the notion of being able to go to the post office and drop things off when you want, scheduling pickup, the actual disruption in some of the parts of the country, and then even just the uncertainty of, well, do I really want to go to the post office today? Is it safe to do that?
Yeah.
And so there is so much we don't know. It would be foolish to think that there's any decision we could make that would solve all use cases and perfectly understand the nuances across the country. The one thing that became really clear as we sat down as an eBay leadership group was, how can we just take the uncertainty and near-term pressure off the table? And so one of the ways we could do that was just to basically grandfather sellers into their current performance standards. So you couldn't go from E tier S and fall down a tier. You can still earn your way up, but that allowed sellers to, if you needed an extra day of handling time just to figure out how to adjust your processes, if not all of your, if you're relying upon employees coming in to pick and ship orders and now you didn't have the same staffing, if your supply chain has been disrupted and you need to cancel some orders. I didn't want to hear from sellers that, on top of everything else I'm dealing with, economic disruption and family at home, I still have to get to the post office tonight to hit my 0-day handling time. It just didn't seem like that was a key thing that sellers had to be worried about. And in all of the buyers I've talked to, everybody has been so understanding. It hasn't been like, oh my goodness, EB, I can't believe, I've seen a 1% late or increase in your on-time delivery. Is this everybody has been very human through all of this? And so it felt like one thing that we could do just to take the near-term pressure off of the operations for sellers, big and small.
Yeah, and I think that was a big relief for a lot of sellers. But of course, the other thing on sellers' minds beyond seller protections is, hey, this is a major disruption to the entire economy. And like you said earlier, some people are doing pretty well, and others are very worried about what the next few weeks or months or even the rest of the year is going to bring. Uh, there were a lot of sellers asking for eBay to come up with something that can help them out during this period of time when it comes to cash flow. What do we come up with, and what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it half ties back to the answer I said before, which is there's just a lot we don't know. I mean, even where I am in Northern California, today is Wednesday. Everything really only changed last Monday. So, we're sort of, what, 10 days into this. It's and yet if for those of you with kids at home or spouses, it may feel like an eternity. And so we're learning a lot day to day. And so the primary sort of guiding theme for me is just how can I take as much uncertainty off the plates of sellers as possible. And one of the themes we'd heard through various outreach calls we'd done was the topic around just deferred payments, deferred invoices. Some of our sellers set aside with every sale to pay the invoice when it comes due, and other sellers rely upon the sales coming in tomorrow to pay the invoice that's due tomorrow. But the invoice that's due tomorrow is actually based upon the sales that happened over the last month. And so, if you were sort of running at a specific clip and all of a sudden you saw your sales fall 30 or 40%, you may not actually have the cash flow to cover your invoice. And you may have other things you need to spend that money on right now, just to set up your household to work from home and adjust all these changes. And so that was sort of where we went down that path. And I think it was this morning, actually, today being Wednesday, this morning, the website went live so people could go and sort of, apply for the deferral for a month for their seller invoice fees. And then if you get approved for that, and our expectation is the vast majority of sellers will get that, then you can sort of pay it back over the next 2 months. And it's not perfect. Nothing at eBay is ever perfect, but I would really want the community to know that on the eBay side, it's been a rallying cry for our employees to do everything we can. And so from the time we decided we were going to do this last Wednesday or Thursday night, so sort of basically 2 or 3 days into this event, employees been working nonstop over the weekend, coordinating with Europe because this was like a global launch, and so people working around the clock to pull it off. And we really are sort of doing our best to make sure we can take the near term uncertainty, whether it's operations or cash flow, and just make that a little bit easier for our community.
Yeah, and I'd like to remind anyone who's listening or viewing this video or listening to the podcast that you can find this page that Jordan is talking about. If you just go to our announcement board, Seller News, there is an article there that has links to this and other new pages that we put up that are specific to the COVID-19 situation. So you should make yourself familiar with where they are and then check them out every day, because the news is breaking all the time, and it also changes what eBay has to do as well.
Yeah, Griff, and I think on that point, I think we're trying to keep shipping information updated fairly regularly on there. So we're getting a lot of questions around how does scheduled pickup work. So some sellers already do that regularly with USPS. For other sellers, it's something they're asking a lot of questions about. The international shipping landscape changes almost hourly. Last week there were some fairly small random countries in the world that were sort of shutting down or restricting domestic shipping. And then even just this afternoon, it looked like there were some pretty big changes in France, and specifically Paris, where they might only be delivering a couple days a week. And so it's our role to make sure your items aren't showing up in markets where they're going to be late, and it's going to be a frustration for you and a frustration for the buyer. But we get a lot of questions on what's happening. And so we're in regular contact with USPS, UPS, and FedEx. And if sellers want to get sort of the most updated information on what we're hearing, the seller news announcements, the page just outlines the place to do that.
Yeah. Another thing we hear a lot from sellers is, hey, I'm going to have a lot of free time. It seems, I'm at home, stuck at home, and I want a list. How about a promo? So how do we answer that request?
So maybe a little bit to the frustration of my team, I love the idea around what can we do for a promo. And I said, well, what's the biggest thing we can do as fast as possible? And this is where it sort of came up with the 50 or 100,000 fixed price in free insertion. So 50,000 for March, 50,000 for April. I've heard from some sellers like, hey, are you sure you targeted me correctly? Like, I only kind of do 500 listings. Like, I'm never going to use 50,000. And the reality is, like, I didn't want to get fancy and try to do a bunch of specific promos based upon your seller size. It's just, our ability to do one promo and get it to our customers as fast as possible, which is why we kind of had this, mega promo for everyone. There's a couple of different customers that can benefit from this. If you are just at home and you've got extra time, then by all means, list. You can probably keep yourself pretty busy for a while. There are also brick and mortar sellers who may have inventory that historically hasn't sold well on eBay, hasn't sold quickly on eBay, and it just hasn't been worth taking the chance on it. Like, now's a great time to test it out. One, because you can put it up for free. Two, our demand profile is changing so much and so quickly. Depending on what part of the country, in past podcasts, you've seen I'm not afraid to talk about Amazon. I won't be afraid to talk about them today. In parts of the country, Prime is now a 5-day promise. On some items, it's a 4 to 5 week promise. And so if you're a seller who's selling multi-channel, those products are selling on eBay. And so, 50,000 listings this month, 50,000 listings next month, great time to bring them over. I know 2 months, especially in this environment, is enough to go and find a new supply chain to bring things in at scale. But with how much things are changing on eBay as quickly as they're changing, my hope is that this provides flexibility for sellers who have other inventory options or sources just to test and learn and see what's selling, because things are selling on eBay now that I never would have guessed 5 years ago. And a huge reason for that is just all these people who are sitting at home. They're sitting at home and working. They're sitting at home and needing to work out. They're sitting at home and need to keep their kids entertained. If you've got, whether it's board games or used Lego, there's never been a better time to put those things up on the site. It's just people need everything. Home gyms, maybe an old Bowflex, free weights, all this stuff is hot right now.
Yeah, I know a seller who sells jigsaw puzzles, and she's selling more than she's ever sold in her entire career at eBay. So lots of people doing things at home.
Yeah, one of our sellers started a thread on a Facebook group this morning, sort of saying like, hey, what's hot? And someone responded with, I don't remember, like, it was a specific plant. I apologize, but basically it was like vegetable seeds. Like, people can't get groceries, and they're planting gardens. And I'll tell you, I was checking it out last night. Like, I don't know if I'm hoping this gets resolved within the 8 weeks it would take me to get my first vegetables outside. But like, everything is selling. It's just different from what was selling 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so hopefully the broader listing allotment lets people put stuff up to test and explore and see what you may have kicking around in other channels, online, offline, that would be popular on eBay right now.
Yeah, one of the things that got really popular, or a group of items that got really popular, were directly tied to the coronavirus itself. Things like hand sanitizers and masks and some other related products, but those come to mind right off the top of my head. And we saw some really quick, enterprising sellers really raising the price on these, and we took action. Can you talk a little bit about price gouging and why we actually did what we did?
Yeah, this is a really tough topic.
Yeah.
I would say, there's a couple elements to it. So one would be the very nature of eBay is a free marketplace, for better and for worse. And every day I get taught both ends of that spectrum in terms of, what's going on. If you look at, hot holiday toys, a Disney princess carriage, a fingerling, the latest Xbox release, it's kind of the nature of a free market is people go and find a good and make a decision every holiday. Well, maybe I'm okay. Oh man, what was the one that was like in the egg that like hatched out? It was like 2 or 3 Christmases ago.
It's animal something.
Hatchimals.
Hatchables.
Like,
right.
Man, people were like selling Hatchimals like out of their trunk for like 3 to 4x, and then like funding their entire kid's Christmas by flipping one Hatchimal.
Good for them.
Yeah, and like that's kind of just the nature of what a marketplace is, within a country and then at eBay globally. But somewhere between like the sneaker drop, the hard to find Christmas toy, and life-saving medical supplies, I think, is where, as a company, as a country, as humans, you kind of draw the line on, like, that just isn't right. And that was really what was sort of behind the decision on, mask and medical supply and hand sanitizer. And we made those decisions, fortunately or unfortunately, I guess, even before I think the broader country realized just how short supplied our hospitals were, which is really unfortunate. So where we are right now, enforcing as aggressively as we can on the N95 masks and variants of that, hand sanitizer. Unfortunately, even worse, people continually are trying to list like virus cures on eBay, which
Yeah.
obviously, like, if that existed, we would all know about it, and eBay wouldn't be the first place to get them. We keep trying to see virus testing kits come on eBay, which, again, just on a human level, like, that can't be the right answer. But I've also heard feedback from sellers on, hey, how did this get through? And I will give the totally honest answer. The answer is, we aren't just facing this battle in the US. eBay is dealing with this on a global basis. And so on a global basis, I don't like seeing one spray can of Lysol being listed for $70. I think that's embarrassing. But if we have to prioritize how we're spending our time, I want to make sure virus cures aren't showing up in France and Italy. And so, as a company, we are, doing our best to keep those things off the site. We have a new report an item drop down. So if you do see, a can of Lysol being sold for $150, or, someone trying to sell a roll of toilet paper for hundreds of dollars, if you hit the report an item link on the view item page, there's a drop down in there for price gouging that goes right to the team that's actioning it. And it will actually save that team time, because they won't have to be looking at new listings if you send them in. So if you see things like that, please send them. There's a big difference, like I said, between selling the hot Christmas toy and things that families like need to have to function, and that is not, I don't think, the best of a marketplace, or best of anything coming through like that.
Yeah, and I would repeat our advice now to sellers who say, well, what do I do with all this inventory? I want sellers who ask that question to actually stop and think where we are right now. And the health workers across the country in hospitals and clinics who are desperate in their need for these materials so that they can keep themselves safe as they help the rest of the citizens deal with this pandemic. Donate it. This is one area right now where you don't need to make a profit. As a citizen, and I know I'm probably on a soapbox now, I can't help myself. You should donate these things. It's the official eBay line now for what should you do with this inventory. You could hold it and then list it later at normal prices when things pass. Think about this for a minute. Think about, it's a life and death situation, and our first responders in this case are our healthcare workers and nurses and doctors, and they don't have enough of this. So those masks and those hand sanitizers should go where they're needed. Donate them to your every city now has drop-off points where you can donate these goods, and they get to the people that really need them. Another thing we were going to talk about besides price gouging is keeping sellers well informed. And I want to talk a little bit about the page we put up, but I'll let you do that. Can you tell us a bit about the page?
Yeah, look, so I will tell you, this has been a huge learning for us. It has concerned me, actually. I've been talking to sellers in the last week of the things we've been doing, and they haven't heard about it. And so we've really been trying to make sure we get the message out there. We've put access to sort of the COVID-19 banner on the homepage. We've also put a lot of cool content up there about just trying to remind buyers about the fact that 70% of eBay is actually made up of SMBs. So the notion of eBay is always open. When you're shopping on eBay, you are supporting Main Street America. It may not be your Main Street. You may be shopping from somebody's Main Street 6 states over, but guess what? A buyer in that state is doing the same thing here. And so when you show up on eBay, you're going to see messaging around supporting small business. You're going to see the teal banner, I think it is, around COVID-19. And when you follow that in, you start to get into the content we set up around educating sellers around, here's the things we've done to support you: seller protections, the fee deferral, the listing promotion, all the extra shipping insights, and then as you touched on earlier, Griff, just updating that definitely daily, if not more frequently, just as we learn more information around what's happening.
Yeah. So again, check out that page. You can get to it, navigate it to it very quickly at the eBay community links for seller news. And while you're there, check out all the other links. There's so many people that use the community platform every day, but there's a lot of sellers who aren't really that familiar with it. It's where I got my start with eBay back 24 years ago. And it's still a great place to meet with other sellers and share tips and advice. And right now, share stories and support each other when it's really needed. But it's where we're publishing all the information you need to know about for what's happening at eBay and what's happening in the world in general as it relates to business and eBay during this pandemic. One more thing before I let you go, Jordan, we talked a little bit about working from home. For many of us, we've had to do this in the past for limited periods of time. This is a different situation. I wanted to ask you about this. What's going on at the campus, and how many employees are working from home right now for eBay?
Yeah, Griff. Actually, before I answer that question, one plug on your last one. eBay Main Street, another great resource for sellers. Lots changing from the government. There was obviously the huge funding bill approved last night. So a lot of small business loans available, incentives at the federal level, at the state level. And so for any listeners or viewers who haven't checked out eBay Main Street, that team is also working hard to update that information again on a daily basis. And so I'd encourage customers to look at that.
Thank you for reminding me. That's a great resource.
Yeah. And so what's going on with employees? What's going on at the campus? The campus is very quiet. There's really not many people there. The only people there are mission critical in our technology organization just to make sure eBay is up and running. But employees almost around the world now are working from home. And so we're all figuring out what that looks like. A lot of people on Zoom and texting and Slack. I've heard from some customers where not all parts of that transition have gone smoothly. And so while the site has been up and running, for those of you who've tried contacting customer support in the last week, you probably were a little bit surprised to find out, like, oh, where did the phone go? And I saw some panic messages, which is like, oh no, eBay stopped customer support and what's going on? I will tell you, the transition of moving our teammates from Austin and Salt Lake to work from home is tricky. For me, it's easy. I move my laptop, I close it, I bring it home. If you've ever had the opportunity to sort of, see what our customer service associates are doing, like they've got multiple monitors set up, they've accessed a lot of information, and it's actually quite complicated to allow a customer service teammate to unplug from the office and do all the things they're doing from home. And so a bit of a transition there, which, insert random ill-timed joke, but like on top of everything, the earthquake in Salt Lake City last week didn't make it any easier for our teammates out there. And so, while I'd say I've been really, really impressed at how eBay employees globally have been adjusting to this new working environment, I would ask for anybody listening to the podcast for a little more patience as we work to get customer support back on track. Please try email. The email response times are hours. It's not like if you send an email, you're going to be waiting weeks and weeks. The self-help area for our sellers, the U.S. is the only country that has it on right now. There's a ton of the common requests you need help with. You can actually self-serve, and it's not like a fake self-serve. Like you actually get a great outcome, and you can get fees refunded and that kind of stuff. And not only do I know it's good because I'm hearing from sellers, but my peers who lead Australia and UK are like really pushing the tech org to get it rolled out to their markets. And so the sellers in the US have like an inside track to that feature as well. But I don't know, look, it's we are here to serve our sellers in our community. And so we're all adjusting. What I worry about is, how's my team doing? And are we able to balance family here, family in other parts of the country with jobs, and then with our sellers, it's just so much change, and some people are experiencing that success, and that's exciting. But there's a lot of sellers where there's the uncertainty, and that's tough. And I don't know that anybody can provide clarity of the uncertainty. It just, we're trying to do what we can to make it a little bit easier. But by all means, the 3 things we've announced have come from feedback from you, our community, on the eBay boards, from phone calls we've done, on Facebook groups. And so if there's more that we can be doing, big or small, please don't hesitate to reach out and give us feedback and ask.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for stopping by. Those are great words. I want to give you a chance, though. Is there anything else that you want to say directly to sellers before we sign off?
No, just thank you. We're all in this together and learning, and I just appreciate the amazing level of support and commitment I've heard from our selling community. just honestly checking in on how we're doing. And it's pretty humbling to see how our employees and our sellers are really trying to figure this out together.
Jordan, thank you so much. I'll let you get back to working at home,
Awesome. Thanks.
and we'll check in with you again soon.
Definitely. I mean, I have a long commute, so just make sure we schedule it accordingly.
Okay. Jordan Sweetnam is the Senior Vice President of Americas and Operations at eBay. We're talking about, well, what we're doing to help sellers through this difficult period of time. Stay tuned. We'll have more of these every week with different execs at eBay. We call them seller check-ins in a sense. And take care, stay safe, keep your loved ones close. Your people that aren't so loved, keep them 6 feet away, social distancing, and somehow we will get through this all together. Thanks again, Jordan.
Thanks so much, Griff. Bye.
Bye now.